Well, it's often said that the difference between being an offshore fishing boat and being in prison is that in prison you don't run the risk of drowning. And there's a truth in that. And, well, bad things do happen at sea. But hey, what happens at sea stays at sea. Maybe not, Ali. Some things are so wrong. Everybody needs to know what's going on out there. So I'm not going to talk about the things you might expect, like winter storms in the Antarctic Ocean, where the wind just screams and it flails the sea into such a rage that the waves build huge and grey. And when they hit the boat, it snorts up into the air like a branded horse. Teeth is on the top, drops down into the trough, and the whole bow gets covered, shuddering under thunderous tons of water. And you're down below, hanging on one hand, cup of tea with the other, talking to your mates, because this has been going on for 30 hours. And I'm not going to talk about piracy, like up through the Malacca Straits, or laid up, same time, same place as the pirates were boarding Captain Phillips' ship. Not even going to talk about near shipwreck, where you come so close that you've just made your peace with God. And in truth, we should be in a postman. What I want to talk to you about tonight is much, much worse than this. Now, my job on all these fishing boats in all these different oceans is that of scientific observer. And I would take samples from fish and bycatch and other things, but perhaps more importantly, I was an independent, impartial witness to what the activities of the boat were doing. And this is normally in politically or environmentally sensitive fisheries. Well, in 2009, a new program started in the Indian Ocean. This is monitoring the tuna. However, this time I wasn't placed aboard a fishing boat. I was placed aboard a large refrigerated cargo ship. That was Japanese captain, officers, Filipino crew. And we were to go and meet the ships out at sea. And these boats, these fishing boats, were far and remote. They were spread right across the Indian Ocean like grains of rice on a Nevada salt plain. And the ship I was on, we would take months beetling our way in this fantastically erratic fashion, meeting up with all the fishing boats from Singapore to Cape Town. And there we'd meet them where they worked, and boy, did those boats work. They work every hour, every day, every week, months, year, years that those boats work. And we enable them to do so. So we'd come alongside them, we'd take their fish, we'd resupply them with cargo, with bait, with fuel, and they'd cast off their lines, and off they go. This man, he changed my life. We were tied up alongside a boat. We had just offloaded the cargo. And as the net was coming back over, he ran and got into it. And I thought, oh, that'll make a nice photo. And I took it. Well, all hell broke loose. The master and the mate from the fishing boat started screaming abuse, trying to get him back. The crew on the boat that I was started all screaming back. And all these different languages, none of it English. And when they landed him on the deck, the crew that I was in, they surrounded him and they took him. And this is all under a sort of tirade of abuse from their own captain on the bridge. And I've never seen insurrection at sea. So I knew this wasn't going to stand. And after a while, two men from the fishing boat came over, sort of enforcer type, heavies. And they came on board, and there was a big standoff. And in the end, they got this guy, and they forced him back with them onto the fishing boat. They let loose their lines, and off they went. And I was there sort of leaning over the rail, watching them go and wondering what that was all about, when the Filipino bosun came up to me. And he said, that man will die. I said, sorry? He said, oh, that man, he'll die on that boat. Or he'll commit suicide. And he went on to tell me the story of this man. That he had been recruited with a friend of his to go fishing with no idea what they're getting themselves into. The relentless work, the lack of food, and the fact they were not ever going to get off again. And he told me how this guy's friend developed abdominal pain, and I don't know what, I'm sort of supposing it might have been appendicitis. But the boat just carried on fishing. And there's no pain relief, there's no medication, and the boat just carried on fishing. So in the end, this man, alone and in obscene agony, died, and the boat carried on fishing. Well, that boat did eventually have to go into port, maybe something mechanical. And they got into port, and that man, he jumped, escaped, ran to the authorities, and he told them what was happening. And immediately they took him and put him straight back on the fishing boat. And when that boat left port, he dived overboard to try and swim ashore, and they got him back on with the fish gas. Since then, a lot more information's getting out what's going on in the fishing industry out there. And way worse than what I've just told you now. What it actually means to be tricked, to be trafficked, to be kidnapped and sold between boats, to work every hour that they can squeeze out of you forever. Slavery is a huge problem in the world today. They reckon, something 20, 30 million slaves. We've got slaves in factories, slaves on farms, slaves in brothels, in nail bars, in car washes. But if you are a slave on shore, there is some chance somewhere someone's looking out for you. I mean, factories can be inspected, brothels raided, modern slavery laws enacted. But if you're out at sea, far and remote, a pinprick in the ocean, no one knows they're there. What? The Food and Agriculture Organization estimate there's something like 1.3 million offshore fishing boats. Now, obviously not all slave boats, but it's the offshore bit that's the problem. So when the Guardian newspaper broke the story about slavery in the Thai fishing industry, for all the outcry and for all the government action, the worst offending boats simply moved out of Thailand's territorial waters. And there they just carried on molested. Because the laws governing the sea are completely different to the laws on land. So if you're a fishing boat at sea, you are the responsibility of the nation under whose flag you sail. And a fishing boat can pretty much pick which nation it wants off a list. And maybe one on the other side of the world. Maybe one that hasn't got the resources or the inclination ever to do anything about what you're doing. And should, miraculously, they'd start doing something, then in one day and for $1,000 you can swap your flag for another and it's all legal. So ships sometimes do have to go into port. But again, what port are they going to choose? They're coming in, they're spending a lot of money, they're spending money on bait by the ton, food by the ton, fuel by the ton. The port that asks questions is not the port that gets the business. And please, don't just think it's something to do with tuna. There have been traffic men found on American boats. There have been traffic men found on Irish trawlers. There have been traffic men found on Scottish scalloping boats. In fact, anywhere anyone has ever bothered look, modern fishing is lousy with modern slavery. Should we be surprised? Really, if we think about it, should we be surprised that if you put a group of men of one race over another group of men who they have complete power over, complete power of when they eat, when they sleep, when they rest, and if they ever get off, and with no fear of prosecution, are we surprised that this should go into abuse, into violence, into murder? And the thing is, things aren't actually getting better. So as the fish stocks are diminishing, fishing boats are having to go further for fewer, fish longer for less. And you can't save money on fuel, and you can't save money on bait. The only thing you can save money on is on labour. And when a trafficked man costs less than 1 month's wage of a legitimate man, you can see how this is all going. Well, if you found this distasteful, the chances are you've been eating it. And what are we going to say to our grandchildren or our great-grandchildren? Well, more to the point, what are they going to say to us? They're going to say, how? How did you fish the oceans out of all the fish? You drove whole species into extinction, and you did so using slaves? And what we said, well, we did it in a tuna bake. And we did it with friends and with sushi and barbecue tuna steaks and wine and laughter. We did it because we didn't know. Well, now for some good news. The mechanisms that we need to change this already exist. I mean, take, for example, what I was doing. Every line-caught tuna in the Indian Ocean, in the South Atlantic, North Atlantic, Pacific Ocean, every single one of those has had eyes on them, an impartial, independent person. So we can do it for the fish. I mean, hell, we got dolphin-friendly tuna. We can do it for the people. You see, where there's a will, there's a way. But the point is, we have the ways. We have many ways, but what we don't have is the will. So I want to ask you tonight to do two small things. I want to ask you, please, do not buy tuna. And secondly, more importantly, I want you to contact your supermarket and ask them, how do you know that the fish you're selling me hasn't been caught by slaves? And if they come back to you with lots of earnest words all strung together in a sentence, like strive and diligence and endeavour, ask them if they know. Have they checked the men? Have they checked the men who caught the fish that they're now trying to sell you for profit? And I think you'll find they go strangely silent. This city, Bristol, is still tainted with the wealth that was made from slavery. But this city, Bristol, was forefront in the sugar boycotts, where consumers, ordinary consumers, refused to buy sugar that was produced by slaves. And that action, that consumer-led grassroots action, hastened the abolition of slavery. So there are many, many ways that we can stop that. Let us please create the will. Thank you very much. Thank you.